Real defense rests, let's lay it down. Gonna dig deep, wave that verdict round. The defense rests, time to analyze. With the evidence, we'll unveil the crime. Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests.
Often helps if you turn your camera on, Josie. Yeah, ready, set, go. Good morning. Happy New Year. Happy thank fuck that's over for another year. How are we? We all good? Welcome. Oh, thank you, Christine. That's lovely. Awesome. Thank you very, very much. I don't know if you saw my message in chat today. I thought starting afresh, starting a new leaf, new year. I think the first week I'm going to issue a challenge. A 7-day pay it forward week. So the idea is basically just doing something nice for someone just because you can. Just one day. Chuck it in chat. Let us know. So my good deed for today is every super chat or super sticker will be going straight to Ty. He's having a little bit rough. Poor bugger. He's gone back to Portland, and because he was picked up so quickly, he didn't have a chance to get rid of his stuff or put it in storage, and it's been cleared out. So it's got to start afresh. So anything that we can raise, anything that we can do, put the word out there. Give him a hand. This is a shit time of year to be broke. Well, not that any time is a good time to be broke, but yeah. All right. So happy 2025. Fuck, that means I'm going to be 54 this year. These grown old things. Shite. Shite, I tell you. Yes, Dylan, yeah. Everything. The thing is for Ty, the tickets. What tickets? Don't know what tickets are. But yes, any super chat or super sticker today will complete, the whole lot will go straight to Ty. I've got his PayPal account details. So I'm just actually waiting for you know, the merch shop I have. Stupid me hadn't put in my bank details on where they should pay me. So I did that yesterday. So hopefully there should be some money forthcoming soon. Welcome, Miss Elizabeth and Miss Anna. Yay! Happy New Year. Happy New Year. You've got some things to do. No problemo. You'll be listening. Well, you should have been listening the other night. Or the other day, I should say. It was hysterical. My New Year's Eve stream was going to go either of two ways, and luckily for me, it went the cackle way and not the chuck way. The funniest part was actually searching up funny things on Temu to buy. That place has everything. And I mean everything. So if you're ever on Temu and you want to laugh, put in the search bar anal floss. Yep. Hours of amusement. My Teresa, what? Good morning, everyone. Can't believe I haven't talked to some of you all since last year. Yep. Slack. Damn. God, I need new glasses. All I got to do is say, Teresa, poof. It's his PayPal account, Christine. So I can't give you. I don't think you'll be able to do it. I can't give you the details to put it into his PayPal account. So you're welcome to transfer it to me, and I will show you that I transfer it directly to him. But yeah, I don't think you'll be able to work it out, doll. All right. So I was umming and ahhing today about what to do and whether to start, because I've been frantically reading these books from Steve Gosney. I've nearly finished 2. I've only got yay! That means I've been monetized for 2 months. Wow. Where did that go? Oh fuck. That means I've got 2 months to get another 440 subscribers. It's got to be done in the 12-month period. Yeah. Because I reached the halfway point to get of monetization. The full point is 1,000 subscribers. So, all right, that's next goal. Oh, those bastards just kept moving the mark. Thank you, Tricia. Thank you very much. Remember, for 2 months. That's awesome. Probably a lot of you have got that. What Tricia's just done is if you go down the bottom where the chat is, as if you were going to buy like a super chat, when you click into that box, right at the bottom of it, it says, what is it, a free monthly chat recognition, membership recognition or something, and you can click on that, and that's how you bring up that green screen, pretty much. Let's see if I can see it. I think you have to go onto the $sign, and then at the bottom of that, under memberships, there should be a little, if you've clicked over for the 2 months, because most of you did join on the day. So you should all be turning over at the same time. Sucker! 2 months. Suck shit. You're welcome, my Ling lost friend. Yeah. Did you no, I won't say that. All right. Yes. Get back on track, Jodie. Focus. Yes, I'm in an whether or not to start another trial, but I think I'll start afresh next week. I've got too much going on. Still trying to set up final bits of Tan's channel and get it ready for Monday, as well as research and present all the shit for the next trial, and the podcast as well. So I had a quick look at some stuff that I had saved when I was initially looking around at information about the death penalty and death row. And I actually found a few really good things. One of them is about the medical team, like the doctor. It's about a doctor who was just so happened that his career path took him down the corrections role. So he discusses sort of how he is pro-life and anti-death penalty, but is the facilitator of lethal injections in the prison. So I found it quite interesting. And there's a few other things I'd like to share as well. So we'll be absolutely well and surely educated for Saturday and be able to throw out some wicked ass questions. We'll be appellate lawyers in the death penalty before you know it. All right, so let me add to stage. Nope, that's not the one. Nope, that's not the one. We got the one? Nope. No one? No. Motherfucker. Nope. Oh, look at me go. Whee! I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, crap. All right, I'm going to have to pick one and just adjust it. That one. Edit. No, that's the wrong one. I don't want to adjust that one. Out. That one. Okay. Adjust. I thought this was all sorted. Where's my? I need a PA. I fucking do. Look like I've got a rainbow behind me. Look at me. Too anal to not be able to cope with that. Sorry. We found the funniest things. What did we end up buying? We bought a. Oh, hang on. I'll get on. Some things just have to be seen, don't they? If you do get a chance to go back and you want to giggle, go back and watch my New Year's Eve stream. Probably about a third of the way through, where I log into Temu and start searching. Oh, laugh, I tell you. Where's my login? There. Come on. Do-do. Right about when it does that. Okay, where's my cart? There. Now, what did I order? Go away. Go away. Where's my order? Let me go back. Orders and account. Okay, so this was the first item we bought. Don't be a cunt cake. That was choice number one. This was choice number two. Yep. You guys are evil. Evil. This was gift number three. So it's a white bath mat that when it gets wet, it makes it go red, so it looks like it's blood. You watch, I'll have a visitor one day and I'll scare the absolute shit out of them. I'll put it on the kitchen floor and go, oh, I must have cut myself. Oh, that's nasty. And this one was the last one. I like this. It's a hoodie, pretty much, but one side of it looks like it's all blood soaked. It says, problem solved. How cool is that? I will actually wear that. I wonder if it'll run in the wash. All right, come on, Jody. Stop fucking about. Let's get on to it. Now I've got to share the screen again. Was that? Oh, look, it fits. Right. Whoa, that's loud. Can you hear it?
My role in execution
Oh, I can.
is one of end of life. Instead of a carcinoma, that individual is dying of a court order.
Well,
But he's
that
still
went
dying.
somber pretty quick.
We're trained, do no harm, preserve life whenever there's any hope of doing so. The concept of the Hippocratic Oath and everything we stand for in medicine. Medical organizations have strongly worded opposition to physician participation in execution. And believe me, I've read them. And I understand them.
Well, what's your other option?
I just don't agree with them.
If you put someone that's not,
I've almost had 2 different careers. An emergency.
if you put someone that's not trained in the ability to comprehend the dosages and the actually even putting in the intravenous line so that it actually goes into a vein and not into the tissue, if you leave that to someone without the education, you're just asking for more shit, more trouble. And as he points out, he has a lot of issues with people protesting against him. And he said, if you take out the facilitator, you're not going to stop the death penalty because it's not him that orders it. It'll just be someone else that administers it in the future. That's all.
Medicine career and a correctional medicine career. If you would ask me during residency or even shortly after residency that I'd be working in a jail or prison, I would have thought, you're crazy. There's just no way. But indeed, that's where my career path took me. Shortly after I had started working corrections, particularly when our company started growing, I got a phone call from the Department of Corrections about helping out with the execution process, which here in Georgia is lethal injection. Sometimes in life, you have to take the bad with the good. And as part of being a leader, as part of being a totality of a healthcare solution. I called him back and I said, well, let me go witness one. Watching a heart monitor, I kept looking for paddles to try to defibrillate the individual. I mean, it was almost like a reflex. Yep. And one thought I had over and over again was, if it were me there or a family member, would I want somebody like me there? And the answer was yes, absolutely. I would want somebody like me there if I had a family member who had done something horrible and ended up on death row.
The fuck?
Not an A?
I'm not a advocate for capital punishment. It's ultimately arbitrary and very expensive and not necessary. But that doesn't impact what I do and why I do it.
Completed 5 minutes lapse time. Stand by for the doctors are now preparing to enter the execution chambers to check the life signs. One of the physicians is now in the process of doing this. The first physician is still in the process of checking for life signs.
When we first started doing that, we approached it as just a matter of fact of providing healthcare in a correctional environment, as our involvement became public, I realized that this was as controversial an issue as it was.
I can't, Christine, I can't open it. I can't tell you what it is or not. So, and I'm in the middle of a stream, Tal.
When local media leaked out that I was the physician that was participating in the execution process, I was contacted by advocacy groups to stop my participation. They oftentimes would protest in both my home and my office and send me emails, get on me with social media, and even challenge my license. Their goal is to hopefully end capital punishment by stopping the people who perform execution and lethal injection services.
Travis Hitson is scheduled to be executed tonight at 7. The 45-year-old former Navy crewman was convicted of killing fellow sailor Conway Utterbeck in April 1992. According to court documents...
Quite frankly, I'd love to hang up my cleats and not do this anymore. As long as there's a need, and as long as they're going to continue to perform executions in Georgia, then I think those individuals on death row deserve to have a physician present at the time of their death.
That'd be fucking awful.
Perception is reality. If most people believe in capital punishment, that's our reality today. The medicalization of execution, I think, does impact public perception. Does that make us more comfortable with capital punishment? Probably.
I only watched the first half of that. That was better than I thought. You just don't think about the other people, the knock-on effect that it actually has on, the people that are in that role to administer this shit. All right, so I've got a few to choose from. We've got Women on Death Row, a crime documentary. We've got the women's execution at Sing Sing prison documentary. We have Execution at Midnight Death Row Part 1. We have Death Row documentary Florida State Prison. Consequences of the death penalty in the executioner's shadow. The last 30 minutes of death row inmate before execution. We've just watched that one. Execution director's cut full movie. Ooh. Executions in Oklahoma, cruel and unusual. It's only a short one. Then you've got how death row inmates spend their final days and the last 24 hours before death. So we have 10 things to choose from. So pick a number. I'll go through them again. The women on death row, women's execution at Sing Sing, execution at midnight, Florida State Prison, consequences of the death penalty from the executioner, and then you've got 30 minutes before death row, director's cut full movie, executions in Oklahoma, and then final days or 24 hours before death. Shall I put in some thinking music? You ready? I actually really like this song. It's it relaxes me. I don't know. I know I'm an idiot. Pick a number, 1 to 10. Oh, I better get back to the comments. 30 minutes before death. All right. Sold to the lady under the pink tea. All right, turn that off. Okay. 30 minutes. That one.
Anything happened, I
Whoa.
can guarantee I'd do it again, and sooner or later I would kill another child. No, I would do it again. I've been molesting kids nonstop since I was 13 years old.
How tough was it to go to parole board 2 weeks ago? You looked scared to me. It was hot.
I remember pulling in the driveway and seeing 2 cars there.
What do you want to say to the family and friends of the victim of Wanda here? What's your message to them?
She knew exactly what I came for.
Has executed a condemned man who killed an Akron woman back in 1997.
You feel pity. It's sad that he made the choice that he made.
And I'm responsible for it.
As far as the death penalty, well, I didn't think about it that much.
And I did not want to be incriminated in relation to her death.
Wesley Allen Dodd. Wesley Allen Dodd was born in Toppenish, Washington on July 3, 1961, and had a pretty normal childhood. Dodd had initially claimed that he did not experience any hurt, even though he and his brother both had their names recorded in history as criminals who preferred to commit crimes against the young. But he later described his childhood as a traumatic one in which he experienced physical and verbal hurt from his father. Their parents' marriage was anything but stable, and it culminated in his father attempting self-hurt following an argument with his wife on July 3, 1976, Dodd's 15th birthday. At the age of 13, Dodd began exposing himself to children in his neighborhood, which was brushed off as the boys will be boys mentality by his father. He progressed from indecent exposure to child hurt, a trend which continued well into his naval career when he was deployed on base. In 1987, Dodd tried to lure a young boy into a vacant building, but the boy refused to go with him and instead told the police. Prosecutors were aware of Dodd's history of offenses and recommended 5 years in prison.
Times I think about what I've done, think about some of the things the boys said before they died, and that's real hard to think. Anything happened, I can guarantee I'd do it again, and sooner or later I would kill another child.
Why do you want to be executed?
I have to.
Yeah.
He was placed on probation and ordered to seek psychiatric treatment. After finishing probation, he stopped going to treatment and moved to Vancouver, Washington. Dodd's fantasies became increasingly violent over the years, and soon he acted on them. He lured 2 brothers, 11 and 10-year-old Cole and William Neer, to a secluded area where they became his first victims. He went on to repeat the experience with another young boy, and his last attempt to kidnap James Kirk from a local theater on November 13, 1989, became his downfall. He was taken into custody by the police, where he was drilled relentlessly for 3 days, finally confessing to the 3 slayings. During the search of Dodd's home, police discovered a homemade torture rack, along with newspaper clippings about his crimes, a briefcase containing Lee Isley's underwear, a photo album containing picture of Lee, and assorted photographs of children in newspaper and store catalog underwear advertisements. They also discovered Dodd's diary, in which he wrote in detail about the crimes. Dodd was put down at 12:05 a.m. on January 5, 1993, at Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. His choice of method of demise had been hanging. Thus came an end to a life which had been useless in any positive way. Rather, it had been a source of pain and fear for children around him.
No, I would do it again. I've been molesting kids nonstop since I was 13 years old. I will kill again. I've done it before, and at the time I liked it.
How do you live with yourself daily?
At times it's not easy. a few child molesters anyway are going to think twice before they do anything again.
Earl Forest. Earl Forest was convicted of the slaying of Harriet Smith, Michael Wells, and Deputy Sheriff Christopher Parsons. The triple slaying occurred in Dent County, Missouri on February 27, 2002. Earl had a history of criminal activity, including convictions for burglary, stealing, and drug possession. According to court documents, Earl had been involved in a dispute with Harriet Smith, his ex-girlfriend, and Michael Wells, her new boyfriend. Earl had previously threatened the couple, and on the night of the slaying, he showed up at Smith's house with a gun. On that night in December 2002, Forrest, who had been drinking, went to Harriet Smith's home and demanded that she fulfill her part of the bargain to buy a lawnmower and a mobile home for Forrest, in exchange for Forrest introducing her to a source of methamphetamine. During the ensuing melee, Forrest shot a guest of Smith's, Michael Wells, in the face, slaying him. Forrest also shot Smith 6 times, slaying her. He took $25,000 worth of meth from Smith's home and returned to his own home, where he had a shootout with law enforcement officers. He fatally shot Deputy Joanne Barnes. He also shot his girlfriend Angela Gamblin and Sheriff Bob Wofford, both of whom survived. When Deputy Sheriff Parsons arrived at the scene, he was also shot and slain by Earl. After a manhunt, Earl was captured and charged with 3 counts of slaying. He was found guilty on all counts and sentenced fatally. The trial revealed that Earl had a long history of criminal behavior and was a known drug dealer. His defense team argued that he had a traumatic childhood, with an offensive father and an absent mother, and that he had struggled with addiction and mental health issues. However, the prosecution argued that his actions were premeditated and that he posed a danger to society.
I remember pulling in the driveway and seeing 2 cars there.
Why'd you sell drugs?
Money is really good.
She knew exactly what I came for.
You know, you're your own boss. And I like working for myself.
She said, Earl, I'll get you a lawnmower.
Me taking someone's life wasn't worth this object?
I thought she rolled her eyes like,
Come out here after the 4th trip to prison in California.
oh yeah, okay, whatever, you know.
I'm not having any more shots. Thank you, sweetheart. That's lovely. I've got it somewhere. It gave me this option to make a goal of some sort. There we go. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Oh, what have I done? Oh, I'm trying to send myself a super chat. Oh. Anyway, I didn't think I did have a shot. Oh. No, stop. No. Aha. I started my goal too early, I think. Dickhead. All right, it's another one. Now, hopefully. Why won't that? Why won't that add to it? Come on. It's showing 0 still. Yeah. Anyway, what's that? $5. What was my? Yeah, we're at $5 mark. I'll just keep an eye on it.
Start to lose it when I got drunk, and that time I did.
How did the trouble with you and Toddy start?
Well, one was hers, and
How'd you come to be in Missouri?
He had 4,000 a pound.
the other one was a friend of ours named Mike.
Yeah, but then telling her that I was serious, and you know,
What were you serious about?
All I wanted was a lawnmower.
so she come back. She made, you make a lot of money about getting my shit.
And I think that pissed me off.
Like I said, I stayed mad for a year and a half and was only, I need some more and more,
Best of my eardrums.
What message were you trying to send?
Earl's.
Make what, doll? Make what?
Case went through several appeals, but his conviction and sentence were ultimately upheld. He was punished by lethal injection on May 11, 2016 at the Eastern Reception, Diagnostic and Correctional Center in Bonne Terre, Missouri. He spent over a decade on the row in Missouri before his punishment. Forest was the 90th person fatally punished in Missouri since the reinstatement of the capital punishment in 1989. Rodney Reed. Rodney Reed is a Texas man who was convicted of the 1996 slaying of Stacy Stites, a 19-year-old white woman who worked at a grocery store and was sentenced to the row in 1998. However, over the years, Reed has maintained his innocence, and his case has attracted widespread attention from activists and lawmakers who believe he was wrongfully convicted. Reed was born on December 22, 1967, in Bastrop, Texas. He grew up in a large family and had several siblings. Reed attended Bastrop High School, but he dropped out in the 11th grade. He later earned his GED and worked various jobs to support himself. In 1996, Stacy Stites, a white woman who was engaged to a police officer named Jimmy Fennell, was found deceased on the side of a road in Bastrop County, Texas. Stites had been strangled, and her body was partially unclothed. Her fiancé initially became a suspect, but he was later ruled out when DNA evidence was found on Stites' body that matched Reed's DNA.
You feel pity. It's sad that he made the choice that he made.
And I did not want to be incriminated in relation to her death. Here the last couple of days, I kind of been thinking about it, but that was the worst mistake I've ever could have made.
Well, if she's up in heaven looking down on us, I think she's probably pleased.
The evidence points directly in that direction, that they do know, the state knows that I'm innocent of this case.
And it has taken years, an extraordinary effort.
I'm really glad that justice was served and that the system really does work.
I feel that the truth is out there.
You told the police you didn't know her.
She's not coming back.
That I'm innocent. Absolutely innocent.
To break through this bias in that community.
Important love that's out there for me. I
Well, the evidence points directly at you.
try not to think about being executed.
Because
that was created from the state's narrative of this whole situation.
Reed, who was African American, was arrested and charged with Stites' slaying. He maintained his innocence, claiming that he had been in a consensual, intimate relationship with Stites and that Fennell had slain her when he found out about it. However, the jury found Reed guilty and he was sentenced to his demise in 1998. In 2019, Reed's case gained national attention when celebrities such as Rihanna began advocating for his release. In November 2019, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals granted Reed an indefinite stay from his punishment, citing the need to consider new evidence and testimony in the case. Wanda Gene Allen. Wanda Gene Allen was born on August 17, 1959, the second of 8 children. Her mother was an alcoholic. Her father left home after Wanda's last sibling was born, and the family lived in public housing and scraped by on public assistance. At the age of 12, Allen was hit by a truck and knocked unconscious, and at 14 or 15, she was knifed in the left temple. It was found that Allen's intellectual abilities were markedly impaired and that her IQ was 69. Found particularly significant was that the left hemisphere of her brain was dysfunctional, impairing her comprehension, her ability to logically express herself, and her ability to analyze cause and effect relationships. It was also concluded that Allen was more chronically vulnerable than others to becoming disorganized by everyday stresses, and thus more vulnerable to a loss of control under stress.
How tough was it to go to the parole board 2 weeks ago?
How about
scared to me?
I'm vulnerable to, what did she say? Vulnerable to, where did it go?
2 weeks ago. You looked scared.
Than others to becoming disorganized by everyday stresses, and her ability to analyze cause and effect relationships. It was also concluded that Allen was more chronically vulnerable than others to becoming disorganized by everyday stresses, and thus
take your fucking Valium. That's what I do. Everyone's vulnerable to everyday stresses. Who doesn't have a parent that's an alcoholic? We don't go around killing everyone. Who doesn't live in community housing? I do. Fuck.
more vulnerable to a loss of control under stress.
How tough was it to go to the parole board 2 weeks ago? You looked scared to me. It was hard.
But, the reason, Gene likes for us to be present during these times to interview, remind her of things that she would like to say. And that's all about the brain damage, and the borderline mental retardation that she had.
In our lives to happen so he can break us of ourselves and we be blessings to other people as well. It was more harder for me to see the people that love me go through what I was going through. I think about every day I have a birthday that the victim's daughter should be here with them today.
By age 17, she had dropped out of high school, which was only the beginning of a dark journey. In 1981, Allen was sharing an apartment with Deidre Pettis, a childhood friend turned girlfriend. On June 28, 1981, they got into an argument and Allen shot and slayed Pettis. In her 1981 confession, Allen stated that she accidentally shot Pettis from roughly 30 feet away. However, a police expert testified that bruises and powder burns on Pettis's body indicated that Allen had pistol whipped her, then shot her at point-blank range. Nevertheless, prosecutors cut a deal with Allen and she received a 4-year sentence. Another 7 years passed before her second and last brush with the law occurred. Allen was living with her girlfriend, Gloria Jean Leathers. The two had met in prison and had a turbulent and violent relationship. On December 2, 1988, Leathers, 29, was shot in front of the village police department in Oklahoma City following a violent catfight breaking out between the two women at their own home. Leathers passed away from the injury 3 days later on December 5, 1988. Leathers' mother had been a witness to the incident, and the revolver involved in the shooting was recovered. Allen spent 12 years on the row. Her application for clemency was denied. While in prison, she experienced a spiritual awakening before she was put down by lethal injection by the state of Oklahoma on Thursday, January 11, 2001, at Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAllister.
And it was like, after then, I can't remember all that happened. It was like I was there physically, but not mentally. What I'm saying is, at the time when I went to trial, they wouldn't allow me and my attorney at the time, Bob Carpenter, and they kept continuously telling the jury this person was timid and meek and never done anything in her life. And this is where I need to be. I'm where I need to be. Out there, I didn't have the money.
But you were carrying the gun.
I didn't have the gun on me.
Brett Hartman. In November of 2012, Ohio fatally punished a condemned assassin, Brett Hartman, who went to his demise still claiming he was innocent of knifing a woman 138 times, slitting her throat and cutting off her hand. "I'm good, let's roll," Hartman said, with his last words. He then smiled in the direction of his sister and repeatedly gave her, a friend, and his attorney a thumbs up with his left hand. Hartman was given a single dose of pentobarbital, and the warden declared his time of demise as 10:34 a.m. Hartman was the 49th inmate put down since Ohio resumed these kinds of punishments in 1999. Hartman acknowledged that he had relations with Wanda Snipes early on the morning of September 9, 1997, at her Akron apartment. He also says he went back to Snipes' apartment later that day, found her mutilated body, and panicked, trying to clean up the mess before calling 911. But Hartman said he didn't slay her, a claim rejected by numerous courts over the years. Hartman's attorneys long said that crucial evidence from the crime scene and Snipes' body had never been tested, raising questions about Hartman's innocence.
But ask why. Why are they hiding? Why are they lying? So when it comes to hands, they searched everywhere. Up until my trial, no one in the world deserves to lose a relative or anyone. And every single time it's come back proving the person's innocence.
He is the 49th inmate put to death since Ohio resumed executions 13 years ago.
The way that Windows, was taken, the hair, fingerprints, and I've never been to prison before, so I'd have no idea.
Slitting her throat and cutting off her hands.
And yet they take only the watch, and that mysteriously ends up being the one thing that was Windows. Why are they refusing to test DNA?
But has always denied he killed her.
Especially family is a very traumatizing experience.
Hartman admitted he had sex with Snipes the day she died.
Critical pieces of evidence. But, I didn't do it. You know why? Their excuse for why they didn't lift those prints?
The evidence included fingerprints allegedly found on a clock and a mop handle. Hartman also argued that evidence could implicate an alternate suspect. The state opposed those arguments, citing the strength of the evidence and the fact that courts have repeatedly upheld Hartman's conviction and fatal sentence. The state also said Hartman refused to take responsibility and show remorse. Tommy Zeigler. Tommy Zeigler was convicted of slaying his wife, her parents, and a customer at the Winter Garden, Florida furniture store that he owned. Born on January 24, 1940 in Georgia, Zeigler was raised in a deeply religious family, attending the Baptist church regularly. He graduated from high school in 1958 and went on to serve in the Army, where he was trained as a paratrooper. After completing his military service, Zeigler attended college and then began working for his family's furniture business. In 1970, he and his wife, Eunice, bought a furniture store in Winter Garden, Florida. The couple was well known in the community and were seen as successful business owners. However, on December 24, 1975, Zeigler called the police to report that his family had been attacked and that he had been shot. When police arrived at the scene, they found the bodies of Zeigler's wife and her parents, as well as a customer who had been in the store at the time of the attack. Zeigler was the only survivor. Despite his claims of innocence, Zeigler was convicted of the slayings and sentenced to his demise in 1976. His case had been the subject of much controversy over the years, with many people believing that he was wrongfully convicted. One of the key pieces of evidence used against Zeigler was the slaying weapon, a .38 revolver. The gun was found in Zeigler's car, and his fingerprints were found on it. However, Zeigler's defense team argued that he could not have used the gun to commit the slayings because he had been shot in the stomach during the attack and could not have wielded the gun for any accuracy. Another point of contention was the testimony of Zeigler's neighbor, who claimed to have seen a man matching Zeigler's description leaving the scene of the crime around the time of the slayings. However, the neighbor had initially described the man as being much shorter than Zeigler, and some witnesses claimed to have seen Zeigler at the store at the time of the slayings.
They got a conviction. And here I am stuck. In my life, the way I was raised and with the life I had, what we had, what we did, what we could have had, what we could have done.
I believe it's appropriate to request the court to...
I didn't do it. Look at the evidence that we present.
To bring in whatever new evidence we also forgot?
And the prosecution hid so many key elements from the defense.
You're 73.
And I feel every day of it. I didn't pay too much attention, and the death penalty is political, very political.
No domestic problems of any kind. No infidelity. No stress.
No.
To authorize release of additional pieces of evidence.
That's not reasonable.
That the jury was not able to hear, and I'm positive.
But to leave this order open-ended for a year?
How long have you been on death row?
46 years.
How could I stop? The guy is innocent.
There's not a day go by that I don't think about her.
All the evidence pointed to Tommy Zeigler.
As far as the death penalty, well, I didn't think about it that much.
He will die on death row one way or the other.
Now, I can tell you straight up it's wrong.
Marriage was good?
Very good.
Now, nearly 47 years after being convicted of the quadruple slaying, Zeigler has finally been permitted to independently conduct new DNA testing on evidence he claims will prove his innocence. Circuit Court Judge Patricia L. Strobridge approved Zeigler's request for DNA testing in October 2022. As soon as her ruling was finalized, more than 100 pieces of previously untested evidence were shipped to a California lab to be tested at Zeigler's own expense. This is the culmination of a long legal process for Zeigler, who made his first DNA testing request in 1994. In 2001, DNA testing on portions of Zeigler's clothing found no trace of the victim's blood. Following those results, Zeigler's lawyers requested access to more evidence and permission to conduct further tests at their own cost in 2003, but their requests were denied. This could be the one thing that saves Zeigler's life. Edward Wayne Edwards. The story of how Edward Wayne Edwards was caught as a prolific serial slayer is one of the most revering ones out there. It all started in Watertown, Wisconsin. Timothy Heck and his girlfriend Kelly Drew were attending a wedding reception on August 9, 1980 at the Concord House, a local venue. The 19-year-old high school sweethearts were looking toward the future. He wanted to be a farmer. She just finished beauty school. They had plans to meet friends after the party, but the couple vanished without a trace. After 48 hours, the Jefferson County Police Department launched a missing persons investigation for the couple. Area police forces joined in the search for Hack and Drew, whose clothing was found a few miles from the Concord House. The situation turned from a missing persons case to something more sinister. Police questioned Concord House employees, including handyman Edward Wayne Edwards, who said he had no information. Weeks after the articles of clothing were found, 2 decomposing bodies were discovered in a wooded area that was later identified as Hack and Drew. No weapon was found at the scene, but the crime appeared to be a knifing. Ligature marks also indicated strangulation. The presence of intimate liquids on Drew's clothing also led to suspicion of a physical exploitation. The crime became known as the Sweetheart Slayings. Despite an extensive police investigation, detectives eventually run out of leads. At the time, John Edwards, Edwards' son, was just 9 years old. He recalled the search parties and helicopters. He also said he remembered that just after the discovery, his father hurriedly moved the family, including his 4 siblings, out of the area. In 2008, Richard Lewell, now retired as a special investigator with the Wisconsin Department of Justice, asked that the nearly 30-year-old Sweetheart Slayings case be reopened. Lewell approached the case with vigor and a hunch. He believed that the odds were strong that police had actually interviewed the slayer and that name would be on file. After 2 months of digging into the files, the name that stood out to him was Edward Wayne Edwards, who fled the area with his family after the slayings. Investigators questioned witnesses about the handyman. They told him that he was short-tempered and volatile, a man who'd beat up his kids and wife and was basically a monster. Lewell also learned that Edward Wayne Edwards, who was born in 1933, was raised in an orphanage and spent time in juvenile detention. More criminal activities followed, including an armed bank robbery in the 1960s in Akron. Arrested in 1962 for the robbery, he spent 5 years behind bars. When he got out, he married and started a family. He claimed he turned his back on crime and wrote a book about it, but it was all a front. His father's pattern of getting jobs, piling up debt, and then fleeing to another area took hold.
Boy lived with some foster parents on the other side of town in Burton.
I deserve it, yes.
With Danny, I saw an opportunity for the insurance purposes and everything.
I'm sorry and everything, but I'm not going to stand up and beat myself on the chest, and certainly I'm.
And so he ended up living with one of the kids that he used to be there. He was not a foster son. He was not an adopted son.
I'm not going to get up in court and apologize and things like this. It's already.
Ended up getting $250,000 out of it, and he got the people there got divorced.
I believe that would be an insult to injury.
That we had his name changed to Danny Boy Edwards, but he took about a year to set it up, and that's what I did. I set it up to collect the money. And
Lewell's team knew they had one surefire way to connect Edward Wayne Edwards to the Sweetheart Slayings: the DNA sample left on Drew's clothes. They eventually tracked him and his wife to a trailer park in Louisville, Kentucky. By that time, he was 74 years old, obese, and relying on oxygen to breathe. He grudgingly agreed to have an oral swab to collect a DNA sample. At a crime lab in Wisconsin, Edward Wayne Edwards' DNA and the genetic material at the crime scene matched. On July 30, 2009, he was arrested and brought to Wisconsin. Edward Wayne Edwards seized control of the situation. He didn't want to spend his life in prison and would have rather had capital punishment. He sent a letter to the Ohio prosecutor's office. In it, according to Brooke Ellen Tuber, Assistant District Attorney, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, Edwards made a provocative statement. He wrote that once officials knew what he had to share, "You're going to want to put a needle in my arm." Edwards confessed to slaying 21-year-old William Billy Lavico and 19-year-old Judith Straub in Park Norton, Ohio. But he hadn't played his last hand yet. Edward Wayne Edwards then confessed to slaying his 23-year-old foster son, Danny Boy Edwards, in 1996 with a shotgun. The motive? Getting the payout of the young man's life insurance worth $250,000. On March 8, 2011, Edward Wayne Edwards was sentenced to his demise for the slaying of Danny Boy Edwards, finally getting his wish. Robert Fratta. They say that Robert Fratta was a deviant who was motivated by a messy divorce, a bitter custody battle, and money from an insurance policy. These things drove Robert to pay an 18-year-old triggerman $1,000 to slay Farrah Fratta, the mother of his 3 children, in 1994. Fratta organized the slaying for hire plot in which a middleman, Joseph Pristash, hired the shooter, Howard Guidry.
Not being afraid to die, I think that's more of my relationship with God. I'm ready. Yeah, I don't mind dying at all. She didn't meet the physical attributes of what I was looking for in a wife.
He showed no remorse. He showed only the fact that he was full of himself, that he was cocky, that he could beat this.
You learn to control your emotions.
During the interview that he was not what we call freely forthcoming with all his information.
Farrah Fratta was shot twice in the head by Guidry in her home's garage in the Houston suburb of Atascocita. Robert Fratta, who was a public safety officer for Missouri City at that time, had long claimed he was innocent. but justice caught up with him when his guns for hire decided to become witnesses at his trial. Fratta was first sentenced to the gallows in 1996, along with his accomplices, but his conviction was overturned by a federal judge, who ruled that confessions from his co-conspirators shouldn't have been admitted into evidence. He was retried and resentenced to demise in 2009. During a 2009 retrial, the couple's children, who were then young adults, testified against their father, and Fratta was convicted and sentenced to her end once more. After 26 years on the row, a judge finally scheduled his date of demise. The former Missouri City police officer was finally put down, making him the first person in the state of Texas to be done so in 2023.
Bob thought he was smarter than everybody else, and he thought he was smarter than we were.
One thing he didn't count on, though, is that there were phone records.
Pulled the gun up, and I shot her once in the head, and she fell to the side.
If he has any compunction towards guilt for killing someone, then they can exonerate themselves by having someone else do the killing. They shouldn't feel guilty. They actually did not murder the person.
Carl Wayne Buntion. Texas' oldest Enro inmate was punished in April of 2022 for slaying a Houston police officer during a traffic stop more than years ago. Carl Buntion was born on March 30, 1944. When he was a child, his father slew a man in front of one of his sons and was violent towards his whole family. In one incident, he smashed his wife's teeth. Bunchen sustained broken bones from the harm, and he said he had post-traumatic stress disorder because of it. One of his brothers served a 20-year sentence for an unrelated crime. Bunchen had a lengthy criminal history prior to the slaying, starting with a theft conviction in 1961. Over the years, he gathered convictions for burglary, damage to property, and possession of narcotic drugs. At the time of the shooting, Bunchen had been on parole after serving 13 months of a 15-year sentence for physically exploiting a child. On April 10, 1971, his twin brother, Kenneth Bunchen, was slain by two police officers during a shootout. At the time, Bunchen had supposedly vowed to avenge his brother's demise. In addition, he had allegedly told a companion that he would rather shoot it out with police than be sent back to prison. On June 27, 1990, Bunchen was the passenger in a vehicle that was pulled over by 37-year-old Houston Police Department officer James Irby. Irby began speaking with the driver, and Bunchen exited the vehicle and shot Irby once in the head. Irby fell to the ground, and Bunchen shot Irby twice in the back. Bunchen fled the scene, shooting at others who were nearby. After slaying Irby, Bunchen also attempted to shoot at a driver during a carjacking attempt, fired at another officer, and held another person at gunpoint before he was arrested. Bunchen was apprehended in a nearby building. In 1991, a jury found Bunchen guilty of capital slaying, and he was sentenced to his demise on January 24, 1991. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals vacated Bunchen's sentence in 2009. Bunchen went to trial again in 2012. At the trial, his brother testified about their childhood. On March 6, 2012, Bunchen was again sentenced fatally by a jury. On March 30, 2022, Bunchen's lawyers asked the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles to commute Bunchen's sentence to a lesser sentence or to give him a 90-day reprieve.
Good morning. How are we, Miss Tam? Happy fucking New Year. I just realised, you know how I was saying that I hadn't set up my banking details on the merch store, so that's why they hadn't paid me. I hadn't done it on YouTube either. I'm like, why haven't I been paid? Yeah. And then you think online banking. I just want my BSB and account number. Do you think I could fucking find it anywhere? Jesus Christ. Did Valium. Oh dear. I know. It's the most important bit and I didn't do it. I know myself. How long have we got on this one to go? 8, about 7 minutes. And then we'll pick another.
They argued that Bunchen's sentence should be commuted because it was imposed by a jury that wrongly predicted he would pose a future danger to fellow inmates. They also stated that Bunchin's physical impairments, including sciatic nerve.
You should. Oh, it was. You're gonna have to go back to the stream and have a look at. It's about a third of the way through. I said to my goals were every $10 increment I would do a cowboy shot, and every $40 increment I would let the chat decide what I bought on Temu. So within 5 minutes, Bride put a $50 super chat down and Teresa put $10 down. So I had 6 shots straight up. And then we had to go on to Temu. And I'm like, what do you want me to search for? And they couldn't think of anything. So I put in anal floss, and oh my God, the funniest shit. Who? Are you talking about YouTube or the merch store? For Death Heard. Oh, okay. We'll stop it then. I wasn't really paying attention because I was trying to put my bank details in. All right. So I reckon we've seen that one. And I'll get rid of that one. Maybe try this one. Might give it a quick. It might be. I don't know. It might be that.
Call from Scott by Zumber.
All right. The merch store will be paying me, hopefully, in the next few days, $45.42. Okay. And I will show you the transaction receipts of proof that I've paid it. Hey, mister. What are you talking about, Ted? What? Oh, fuck. You see how I get distracted? I forgot to share it back again, and you've been looking at that. Thank you for letting me know, Tanya.
25 executions. more than half of
I will go
Oklahoma's
back.
death row population.
Incarcerated individual at Oklahoma State Penitentiary.
Scott Eisenberg is on death row for killing an elderly couple who lived
morning,
across
you
the
have-
street from an ex-girlfriend he was stalking.
Scott. This execution protocol we have here, I'm going to get much more ridiculous. You're strapped down to a table. Wrist straps, ankle straps, straps across your chest, your belly. You have to wear a diaper. And then they're going to jam needles in you until they find a vein. This is supposed to be an execution, not a vindication.
I think that there are some people who have been victims of violent crime, victims' families, who maybe think, I don't care if this guy feels pain in his execution.
I would ask them where their empathy is. They want me to be remorseful, which I am, but they want my head.
In just a few minutes, Scott Eisenberg is going to be executed in the death chamber in that prison right there. And I've been talking to him the last month, and he feels strongly that the way the state is going to kill him is cruel and unusual punishment. And part of the reason is that the drugs that they're using to kill him are the exact same drugs that they've used to kill people in the last several botched executions here.
An execution by lethal injection deviated horribly from the script.
He was grimacing, clenching his jaw. His body was shaking.
Witnesses say he started convulsing and...
Now that shit right there. Oh, where is it? Go back. Yeah. Madame Lamb. Oh, the best thing ever. And I don't know if any of you have ever had like a gastroscopy or a colonoscopy. That's the drug that they use. So it's in the temazepam family, but it sedates you enough that it causes memory loss. So when you actually have a colonoscopy, you don't know it, but you are actually having a conversation with them. They are telling you to sit up, lay down, lift your leg up, and you are responding to them. You need to remember shit. It is the best drug ever.
And
Just
vomiting.
FYI.
The man called out, "It feels like acid, and my body is on fire."
Starting in 2014, inmates in Oklahoma, including Eisenberg, filed a lawsuit over the 3-drug combination used in lethal injections.
Why was you camping? Oh, Tracy already asked you that. Did you come across any bears? Any big bears? Did you catch any fish? Any trout? And Happy New Year to you. You missed the funniest stream. Yep. I think Jody had 8 shots and bought some funny things on TV.
They argued the protocol produces, quote, severe pain, needless suffering, and a lingering death, and cited a lack of training in the staff that administer the drugs. The inmates claim the method is a violation of the 8th Amendment, which prohibits cruel or unusual punishment. They lost when a judge ruled the protocol was constitutional. Almost immediately, the state scheduled 25 executions.
Oh. Bear scat. You can't say shit. Yeah, go back to the bit right where it's about a third of the way through. Bloody Bry chucks $50 straight down, and Teresia follows up with 10. So there's 6 shots right off the bat. I can say shit. shit. And then the other thing I had to do was every $40 increment, I had to get onto my Temu, and the chat had to tell me what I could spend my money on. Oh, yes. No. I was a bit tipsy, I will say. Oh, yeah, I know. Well, I have not had that much to drink, and I know that's probably not a lot, for well over 10 years. Well over. It was funny.
More than half of Oklahoma's death row population.
The shit
Hey,
we
Daisy.
found.
Hey, baby.
If you want to have a laugh, get onto Temu and put in the search engine anal floss. Yep.
She
Ours.
protects all
Ours
of the
is
wildlife around here.
It's good, wasn't it?
We've got goats. And these guys right here,
And then we did a garden tour.
this is Apache. He's part of my inner peace. He's just one of many critters around here that really makes us happy.
Got me some critters.
Randy Workman was the warden of Oklahoma State Penitentiary until 2013, where he oversaw 30 executions. Could you just give us the play-by-play of how executions are carried out?
Well, when a guy goes for execution, he is given a drug that will put him to sleep, much like surgeries. The next shot that goes in will basically paralyze the lungs. At that point, he may start to cough some. I've seen it 2 or 3 times.
What did that say to you?
That the next drug was working and that his lungs had quit working.
But did you think that he was maybe experiencing discomfort or pain?
Everyone that I've seen, the guy was completely out of it. He wasn't aware. And then the next shot that's administered is potassium chloride.
Right.
Even a pin drop of it in your system could paralyze your heart.
Yep.
But he's given enough
fact,
to probably take care of him.
Pro tip, okay? I actually said this the other day. Why don't they just use potassium? Because they were saying that the actual pharmaceutical companies that produce and make the phenobarbital didn't want. Oh, was it you that was telling me it had? That they didn't want to be associated with executions and the death penalty. So they refused to sell it to them. So the government is now buying it from overseas at a less quality. Excuse me. My nose, every time I sit here, I feel like I've got a cold. But when you have open heart surgery and they connect you up to the bypass machine where it does all the work, they obviously can't work on your heart while it's still moving. So they open the pericardial sac and they pour straight potassium solution into it and it instantly stops the heart. And that's why doctors monitor. You can tell so much information from a single blood test of, it's called UNEs, urea and electrolytes. So it is very important that your electrolytes are in balance. And it's sodium and potassium and basically interact with one another, and they have to be at a certain level. And if they go outside of that, like potassium is the biggest thing that you need to monitor in intensive care. And if you know anyone that's on fluid tablets, make sure they're taking potassium because it'll put them into an irregular heart rhythm. It's not selective of the fluid it takes. It clears everything out. I know if I take them, I have to take extra magnesium because my magnesium gets out of whack and my whole body starts cramping up. So, yeah, just a fun fact for you.
Bull elephant. And then he's dead.
What was that experience like for you?
It was very traumatic at first, but it's not your decision. It's the law of the land. Your role is to make sure that absolutely everything is carried out with dignity. The fact that you're losing your life is the punishment.
Anesthesia is both a procedurally oriented specialty, but we also have to have a really good grasp of pharmacology and physiology.
Dr. Gail Van Norman is an anesthesiologist who testified in the inmate's lawsuit that midazolam, the drug that Oklahoma uses to put prisoners to sleep during an execution, cannot reliably keep them unconscious.
No, it can't.
What we want to demonstrate here today is what a general anesthetic would look like. I'm going to be administering 5 drugs. In this case, I'm going to give 1 milligram of midazolam, and I'm going to follow that with 50 micrograms of fentanyl. You can see that his eyes are beginning to droop. He's blinking a little less.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm just noticing his eyes now.
You'll see that his heart rate has fallen and his blood pressure has come down. These are all indications to me that the drugs probably made it in.
So the sedatives that, let's say, a death row inmate is getting during an execution, how is
The white one, the white needle is the anesthetic, the propofol.
that different than what we're seeing right here?
Well, in the first place, obviously the purpose is different, but in second place, a general anesthetic is almost never accomplished with just one drug.
No.
An anesthetic is literally a symphony of a lot of different drugs given together in a knowledgeable way with scientific evidence supporting their effects so that we can provide a patient with a relaxed and painless experience in the operating room.
You recently testified in a case in Oklahoma. What were your main arguments?
First of all, that the protocol will not actually produce an unconscious inmate. In addition,
Why don't they just anesthetize them to start off with and then use the potassium? Like, is that too hard? Like, they've got that shit down pat. I don't know.
the way the drugs are given and the very
Makes sense
drugs
to me.
that are applied will cause something called pulmonary edema, which will in
Drown.
effect cause the inmate to drown. Their lungs fill with fluid during the execution, and their airway obstructs, so they can't take air in even if they want to. The paralytic agent prevents them from demonstrating that they're feeling pain, even though they can feel extreme pain and extreme suffering during this. And then the potassium that's given at the end is absolutely known to be completely excruciating. It's a lot like
It does
being
hurt.
lit on fire.
Yeah.
So
it does hurt.
In Oklahoma, are these inmates receiving enough of a sedative to prevent them from feeling pain during these executions?
The main drug that's used.
That's hard to answer because the patient won't remember if they're in pain when they're using midazolam. It affects their memory. So you have to use other forms of assessment to establish that.
Is to sedate them is midazolam, and midazolam is not an anesthetic.
No.
It is incapable of keeping a person or an animal asleep during a very strong, painful stimulus.
These prisoners have been sentenced to death. Does it matter that they feel pain?
Certainly it matters.
Yeah.
I mean, we're supposed to be exacting punishment or exacting what the law allows, but we aren't supposed to be torturing people.
All right, let me ask a question. So, you have a patient or someone who is sentenced to death, and they have, and you're the person that is supposed to do that, to provide that. You're the expert. You can do it properly. How do I put the question? That's probably not the right way. All right. So let's put it this way. If there was someone above you that was better at doing it than you, but you were the second man in charge and there was someone below you, and you didn't have a choice whether or not you had to be in that position, there was no other option, and the first person calls in sick and they can't do it and it falls on to you, do you then, knowing that you are then the most qualified person to perform that in the most dignified way, would you still refuse? Meaning, if your refusal meant that person might suffer more because it's inevitable what's going to happen anyway, would you choose to bow out and let someone else do it to just because you completely oppose it, or would you actually just go, you know what, I've got to suck it up. I've got to do this for his sake. Yeah, exactly. No, that's what I was just saying, bro. That they were saying the drug they used to sedate them is midazolam, and she asked if they could still feel pain, and I said, well, I wouldn't be able to tell you because I don't remember it. You need to be able to assess it another way. But why don't they just anesthetize them and then give them a potassium injection? I don't know. As she was saying, they've got that down to a fine art. You know, they can keep people intubated and unconscious. That they know exactly how to titrate it. I don't understand why they can't put them in that condition and then, I don't know. It's just me. Thought it made sense. It is a difficult question. It is, yes. But would you do it? Because I think I would. If that was the only option for that person to not to have the least amount of suffering, yeah, I probably would. And there wasn't any chance that it was inevitable anyway. Yeah. It's like that decision that you have with your animals, you know. What point do you actually say, okay, enough, they've suffered enough, type of thing, even though this person isn't in pain. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I thought. Yep. Did you Brian, did you have a did you have a look at the gifts your money helped buy yesterday on the stream? Oh, it was funny as all fuck. Once this is finished, I'll show them.
We're at the Oklahoma State Capitol to meet Representative J.J. Humphrey. He's the chair of the House Criminal Justice and Corrections Committee, and we're here to talk to him about whether the state has an obligation to ensure that inmates are not feeling pain during their executions.
I'm a 100% supporter of the death penalty, but I'm 100% supporter of getting it right.
Credible anesthesiologists have said that some of these death row inmates in Oklahoma have likely experienced pain during their executions. Do you think that that is a violation of the Eighth Amendment?
Whatever the court tells us to do, that's what we're going to carry out. Now, do I have a personal opinion? Absolutely. I don't think there's any way that you can execute somebody without pain.
How is that not a violation of the Eighth Amendment then?
Well, it's cruel and unusual. It's what the word is. So again, that's a pretty broad definition. Some people I know would say if you're hung, it's not cruel and unusual. You committed a murder. You deserve to die. This is the way we're going to kill you. I don't think there's any pretty way to carry out a death penalty. So people who want to see absolutely nothing, I don't think you'll ever.
How about you go and speak to someone who's worked in palliative care, motherfucker? Really?
Get there. I think that what you try to do is to give as little as pain as you can. But again, what's pain?
What's pain? The only thing you should feel is that fucking needle prick. Well, actually, no. You know what? They should give you 10 Valium before that. There goes a snort. Okay. Gianna Taboni. I think Unahef wants to bony you.
Do you know that midazolam is a controversial drug in these executions?
Oh, yes. The ones that were botched. And midazolam seemed to be the culprit.
I mean, when you think about that, what goes through your mind?
I don't think about it. I've been here 17, almost 18 years. I've seen a lot of guys get executed. You become numb to it.
Reverend Jeff Hood, Eisenberg's spiritual advisor, spoke to the crowd right after witnessing his execution.
It is a bizarre occurrence that in this country, we put someone in a room with an audience and kill them, and we call it justice.
Oh,
Could you give us a sense?
Oh, hang on. We missed the beautiful stickers on his laptop. Get rid of the CCs. Who would Jesus execute? Execute justice, not people. I can't read. Vote good. End Colorado's death penalty. I can't read the rest. We found some funny mugs on Team. Had better slogans than that.
An audience and kill them, and we call it justice.
I don't have a county. I am in Australia, so we don't have counties. You just need... When I sent you money, I sent it from my PayPal account to yours. So you should have my PayPal account. You should just be able to click on there, put the amount in and send. That's all you should do.
Could you give us a sense of what you witnessed in there?
I mean, it was just beyond disturbing. When the poison started flowing, he started snorting. He started choking and kind of, I guess the best word for it is gasping for air.
How long do you think Scott was choking, gasping for air?
A couple of minutes, easily a couple minutes. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, actually.
Did you feel like he was feeling pain or was suffering?
You know, and I think that's the thing about these executions. I have no way of knowing that.
Ah, there you go. So they were carrying out one every 30 days, and it's an unduly burden on the Department of, what is that, Criminology? Department of Crime? And its personnel. Well, at least someone's thinking of them. Because when we were reading through book 2, apparently PTSD in death penalty defense attorneys is extremely common. I wonder why. You don't think of that shit.
Give us a sense of how much reporting you've done on the death penalty over the years.
I've witnessed 4 executions in Oklahoma.
And what was it like to be in the room witnessing them?
It was a bit surreal. Watching someone actually die is very different than seeing someone who has passed away. But I felt that it was my duty as a journalist to report to people who are reading this, whether they're pro-death penalty or anti-death penalty, or they don't know exactly what happened. So each one of these cases has victims, has families, and has a pretty devastating story behind it. And that's, I think, important to remember. But that is completely separate from whether the 8th Amendment to the Constitution was violated. Question of innocence or guilt has nothing to do with whether these people are executed in a way that doesn't cause unnecessary suffering and torture.
What happened with Clayton Lockett?
It was the first execution in Oklahoma that used midazolam, which is not, as my reporting showed, an anesthetic. It is a twilight drug that is given to people who are going to have their wisdom teeth taken out, are going to have a colonoscopy. But if they were burned or they were stabbed, they probably would wake up. So this thing starts, he's covered up with a sheet, and then they ask him if he has last words, and he says no. The warden says, let the execution begin. And they apparently start pumping the drugs, and the doctor gets up and checks and says, no, he's not unconscious yet. And then he gets up and checks again. And then the doctor saying, yes, he's unconscious. They began obviously pumping the second and the third drugs, and he just starts moving. You know, his leg twitches, his arm twitches. You know, there's movement there, and I've never seen movement.
In the prior executions, you never saw anything like that?
Nothing like that. No, not at all. He was literally raising his head up, trying to get off the gurney, and turning his head from side to side and talking. And it was clear that he was not out.
Did he seem distressed?
Yeah, absolutely. He seemed to me to a reasonable.
Midazolam is a twilight sedation, but that's what they use for gastroscopies and colonoscopies, and it affects your memory. So it's a sedative that wipes your memory as well. So you are actually complying to orders, like, you know, lay on your side, roll over, blah, 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 whilst you're in there, but you don't remember any of it. The worst part of a colonoscopy is the bowel prep. Yeah. We have a drug over here that you have to drink before it, just to clear you out so that they can see it. They don't want anything in there, so you've got to flush your system, so to speak. Gives you the shits, but, you know. And where was I going with that? Yeah, the drug is called Go Lightly, Hardly, Go Heavily, Go Frequently, Go Watery, but anything but lightly. And Happy New Year to you. Yep. Well, you won't remember, I promise. You won't remember being violated.
This guy seemed to be in pain. It was like something out of a horror movie, honestly.
Were you able to figure out what the main reasons were
Some people like
that execution was so botched?
They didn't have
the things the things that were on Temu were enemas, so they just clean out, you know, a little bit further up. What the large intestine, like they don't go as far. But if you're going to have a colonoscopy and they need to see a bit further in, this cleans the whole intestines through. Like, trust me, it cleans you out. Not that I've had one, but I've witnessed many.
I'm training in case something went wrong. They used a local doctor who apparently couldn't insert a femoral IV because the IV was inserted improperly. And so the drugs either leaked into his tissue or they spilled out onto the floor.
Why they put in they put an arterial line in? The fuck? No.
Floor. So he didn't get enough of the first drug to put.
I'm gonna have to search. Hang on, let me get to another window open so that I can have a search while you're watching this. I want to know exactly what the procedure is.
Put him out. And they're also experimenting with a drug. They're sort of making it up on the fly.
Why does it matter if these guys feel pain or not?
It matters because the 8th Amendment of the Constitution says that there shouldn't be cruel and unusual punishment. And because I think it reduces us to a level of other countries that we hold ourselves above in terms of treating people humanely.
I'm Michael Learmonth, editor-in-chief of Vice News. Too often, traditional news outlets shy away from the real stories and experiences of those living through global conflicts. Not Vice News. Our reporters are on the ground, fearlessly covering the human stories that shape our world. You and millions of others can continue to read, watch, and listen to Vice News for free. But we hope you'll consider making a one-time or ongoing contribution of any size at vice.com/contribute. Every contribution, no matter how big or small, helps support the journalism Vice News brings to you every day. Thank you.
Oh. Okay, hang on. We'll finish that. Stop. Move you back up here. Move you up there, out the way. No, up there. Thank you. Right, now I can see you all again. Oh, it was funny. All right, so I want this. All right, let's have a look at that. Can't see that. There we go.
John Marion Grant waited to be killed. Executioners strapped him to the gurney, then they injected him with a sedative. John was being executed by lethal injection. It's supposed to be the humane, less cruel way to die, but John began to vomit and shake. It went on for around 15 minutes before he was declared dead. It had been violent and likely painful.
I have accompanied 6 human beings to execution. It's such a fallacy of an argument to claim that you can kill a conscious, imaginative human being humanely.
For decades, lethal injection has been marketed as the safe, sanitized face of executions in the United States. But it turns out the science behind it might be wrong.
To call this science, the profession of medicine has nothing officially to do with this.
First of all, when it comes to capital punishment, race plays an outsized role in who is sentenced to die. In fact, Black defendants are more likely to receive death sentences than their white counterparts.
It reminds me of,
still,
going to be honest, mostly Black people being lynched and mostly white people watching on with glee.
It's an important disparity to consider when we talk about the death penalty in the U.S. Until the 1980s, the most common method of executing prisoners in the U.S. was electrocution. Take a moment to think about what that would be like. The death is excruciating. It's violent. Some prisoners even caught on fire while being electrocuted. And the horrible spectacle of humans burning alive began to impact public opinion on the death penalty.
That smell is something that you never, ever forget.
In response, lawmakers looked for an alternative, cleaner, quieter, less painful method of killing. That's where the idea to kill by lethal injection came from. To keep the prisoner from feeling any pain, executioners would administer 3 drugs. First, they would inject something to knock the person unconscious, usually an anesthetic or sedative. Second comes some sort of paralytic meant to cease all movement in the body. And finally, a drug to stop the heart, usually potassium chloride. But here's something that shocked us while researching this piece. The man responsible for coming up with the 3-drug cocktail, he says he acted on a hunch. By his own admission, Dr. A.J. Chapman did no research before coming up with the idea. And Chapman later admitted he was, quote, an expert in dead bodies, but not an expert in getting them that way. His speculation became the legal blueprint for states adopting lethal injection across the country.
The idea of lethal injection was to create a method of execution that would at least outwardly appear to not be cruel.
That's Dr. Joel Zivit. He's an anesthesiologist and an expert on lethal injections who says he's agnostic about the idea of the death penalty itself.
For a long time, people believed that lethal injection was the best method because it was not cruel, because it appeared to be the same thing as falling off asleep and then dying.
But as we saw, that clearly was not the case with John Marion Grant, who was sentenced to death in Oklahoma for the 1998 murder of Gay Carter. And his violent death was not an exception. Before the state killed Grant, Oklahoma hadn't executed anyone in 6 years after a string of botched killings. And in many autopsies across the U.S., examiners found the prisoner's lungs were filled with fluid.
The death here is more akin to death by drowning, where a person's lungs fill with fluid and they choke and they may have awareness of this, and that's how they die. They die of suffocation.
Many people who endured lethal injections have suffered long and painful deaths. Lack of training for staff or rushed executions are also sometimes to blame. Hours before John was supposed to be executed, the Supreme Court lifted a stay on his death put in place by a lower court. Oklahoma wasted little time before rushing him into the execution chamber. We may have been sold the myth of the painless execution, but many people on death row know how painful it could be.
It's the separation of people from the suffering that allows it to happen. You don't see it. You're not close. It's a secret ritual. It happens behind prison walls.
Sister Helen Prejean is an anti-death penalty advocate who has served as a spiritual advisor to death row prisoners.
How can you not call this by its name, which is torture?
So some prisoners have asked to be killed a different way. The vast majority of executions for the last 40 years have used lethal injection, but other methods are still on the books, like electrocution, which one medical examiner said essentially cooks the brain. Still, some say they would prefer that execution method because the electric chair usually takes around 2 minutes to kill someone. Lethal injection has taken over 2 hours in some cases. And in certain states, people can choose the gas chamber or even death by firing squad. Death row prisoners joined together to file a federal lawsuit in 2014 challenging Oklahoma's execution protocol.
And no state is more infamous for botching executions than Oklahoma.
Initially, one of those prisoners was Donald Grant, no relation to John Marion Grant. But Donald was dropped from the lawsuit when he failed to pick an alternative execution method.
He definitely was very, very anxious until the end. Prior to his execution, other executions had been botched.
Donald's older brother, Joe Robinson, was there to witness his execution.
It looked like almost like a movie did or something like that. And we were told exactly where to sit, so we were up close.
Donald was sentenced for killing Brenda McLeay and Felicia Suzette Smith, 2 hotel workers, in 2001. After his final clemency request was denied, Oklahoma executed him in 2022.
I'll be the last to try to minimize or explain away my brother's crimes or anybody's crimes. So I am anti-death row. I would say that. But I think it is a crime for the state to take. So it's it's like, do as I say, but not as I do.
Media witnesses say Grant's execution was uneventful. But what does that even mean? It's hard to know because states are making it so hard to figure out if an execution goes wrong. For the 3 decades after legalization, states used the 3-drug cocktail with little variation to the original mix. That is, until a wrench in the supply chain and a shift in public sentiment sent states scrambling. In 2011, the sole U.S. manufacturer of a key lethal injection drug stopped production, which brings us to how states decided to make ends meet using shady legal work. Initially, states borrowed from each other, with California, Arizona, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Georgia sharing their supplies. But it wasn't enough, so some U.S. states started experimenting with...
All right. Are you still there, Christine? Are you still in chat, though? I think she may have gone. What have I missed? Too busy trying to organise PayPal shit. Oh, really? There's plenty of free sites, apparently. So I can't even remember the name of it. There is a free one. Do you know? Talking about that, I've only ever watched one right through from start to finish and listened to the commentary. And that was the spin-off of the Pirates of the Caribbean. That was fucking hysterical. We'll have to do a compilation. I may or may not have. You go, girl. Apparently, Adult Matchmaker is a good one for that, Elizabeth. Palm Pilot. Probably. Do they want photo ID?
New
How do
untested
we go from lethal injection to porn? I love this chat.
drugs.
The Supreme Court has allowed
I'll just eat my cherries and be
massive
quiet.
experimentation with the states to use different drugs to try to kill people.
Like Texas, which changed its lethal injection procedure in 2012 to rely on only one drug.
I have contacted you on PayPal and sent you the link where you just have to accept it and it'll come straight to me.
A sedative called pentobarbital. Still, prison officials struggled to procure it. The state's prison employees have even been accused of lying to pharmacies and falsifying documents to obtain the execution drug. In one case, Texas prison officials allegedly claimed the drug was for a prison hospital that closed down almost 30 years before they placed their order. Other states turned to foreign companies to close the gap. But when the European Commission noticed the influx of U.S. prisons buying drugs from European drug makers, it banned the export of drugs for use in execution.
And as a consequence of all of these problems, the states who do this, instead of opening their doors to public discussion and scrutiny, have passed secrecy laws. And so, in fact, it becomes harder and harder to investigate the truth of this.
Today, 24 states have secrecy codes or laws on the books to hide those who participate in execution, from the drug maker to the pharmacy to the person who inserts the IV. The lack of transparency is compounded by new state policies that account for incidents like vomiting, contortions, and other side effects. In this way, states preempt calling executions botched by basically listing anything that might potentially happen as protocol. Around the world, executions are declining.
Good.
And in the US, lawmakers in at least 14 states are considering legislation to limit or ban the death penalty. But some states are going in the opposite direction.
Florida?
Like Oklahoma, where officials announced execution dates for 25 prisoners.
It's just cruel. And the fact that, we're talking one a month. I mean, that is insane.
In 2022, a federal judge dismissed the lawsuit where Oklahoma prisoners contested the state's lethal injection protocol. The judge ruled that the state's method of killing does not defy the Eighth Amendment and is not cruel. But can state-sponsored killing ever be anything else?
You cannot ever identify a human being's worth by the worst thing they've ever done. But see, here's the thing. Once in our minds, we posit or we say we believe that the killing of a human being is not cruelty, then all this happens.
All right. And where do I do that? Sorry, I'm just trying to find some more info on it because I'm curious. Where's the protocols? Come on. Oh dear. Let's have a look at that one. Methods. Lethal injection is the most widely used method of execution, but many states authorize other methods, including electrocution, lethal gas, and the firing squad. All right. In 1977, can you read that or not? If I can make it bigger. No. Oklahoma became the first state to adopt lethal injection as a means of execution. Though it would be 5 more years until Charles Brooks would become the first person executed by lethal injection in Texas on December the 2nd, 1982. Today, every state that has the death penalty authorizes execution by lethal injection. When this method is used, the condemned person is usually bound to a gurney, and a member of the execution team positions several heart monitors on their skin. 2 needles, one is a backup, fair enough, are then inserted into usable veins, usually in the prisoner's arms. Why were they saying the femoral before? That's in your groin. That's doesn't make any sense to me why they would do that. Long tubes connect the needle through a hole in a cement block wall to several intravenous drips. The first is a harmless saline solution that is started immediately. Then, at the warden's signal, a curtain is raised, exposing the prisoner to the witnesses in the adjourning room. The process then differs depending upon whether the state uses a single drug or a multi-drug protocol. Why would they just be a single drug? In the one-drug execution, the prisoner is injected with an overdose of phenobarbital. In the multi-drug executions, states start with a sedative, previously sodium thiopental, but most recently drugs such as midazolam, which is supposed to put the prisoner to sleep. Next, a paralytic drug, typically vecuronium bromide or pancuronium bromide, is injected, which paralyzes the entire muscle system and stops the prisoner's breathing. Finally, the flow of potassium chloride stops the heart. Death results from anesthetic overdose and respiratory and cardiac arrest while the condemned person is unconscious. And there lies the issue. Are they unconscious or not? Medical ethics preclude doctors from participating in executions. Really? It precludes them from participating. So who the fuck does it then? If you're in the what do they call it up here? Are you part of the execution team? Are you not a qualified physician? I suppose if you could just practice in, you're certified in IV cannulation. California, Colorado have legalized physician-assisted dying. Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's what I said. Speak to someone who's done palliative care. They know exactly how to sort that shit out. Yeah. Or, you know, do exactly what they would do in an intubated patient. It's not rocket science, people. Oh dear. This might be scary. Graphic warning. Graphic warning. Turn away now if you don't want to look. I don't know what's here. Warning. Article contains graphic images from the autopsy of an executed prisoner. Right. Of course, in Florida, on December the 13th, 2006, the state of Florida botched the lethal injection of Angel Diaz. Wow. I wonder if I might write that name down. Just see if Steve knows this one. Angel Diaz. (2006). The execution team pushed IV catheters straight through the veins in both his arms and into the underlying tissue. That's why you flush it, you dickheads. You would know that straight away. As a result, Diaz, who was convicted of murder in 1986, required 2 full doses of the lethal drugs and an execution schedule to take only 10 to 15 minutes lasted 34. It was one of the worst botches since states began using lethal injection in the 80s. Other states hardly heeded Diaz's death at all. Since he died, states have continued to botch lethal injections. A recent study estimated that almost 7% of all lethal injections have been visibly botched. That is 7% too much. The most. How many times have you seen a botched? The most controversial was in Oklahoma this past April. When was this written? 2014. Where am I? When the state executed a convicted murderer and rapist named Clayton Lockett using a 3-drug protocol. Like most other death penalty states, the execution team struggled for 51 minutes to find a vein for IV access, eventually aiming for the femoral vein deep in Lockett's groin. Something went wrong. Oklahoma first said the vein had blown, then exploded, and eventually just collapsed. Fucking idiots. They certainly didn't know what they were doing. And eventually, all of which would be unusual for the thick femoral vein if an IV had been inserted correctly. Yeah. Whatever it was, the drugs saturated the surrounding tissue, so they won't be absorbed, rather than flowing into the bloodstream. The director of corrections called off the execution, at which point the lethal injection became a life-saving operation. What? But it was too late for Lockett. 10 minutes later, and a full hour and 47 minutes after Lockett entered the death chamber, a doctor pronounced him dead. What the fuck? What was his name? Clayton Lockett. Oklahoma. Failed IV access. Failed. And took how long? An hour and 47 minutes. Became right. Sorry. Witnesses to the execution say Lockett writhed, clenched his teeth, and mumbled through the procedure. We won't better understand what happened until Oklahoma releases an autopsy report sometime this summer, but we do know what happened to Angel Diaz, who died under similar conditions. While the details of his execution have been known since 2006, for the first time, photographs of the injuries Diaz sustained from the lethal injection. I discovered the photographs in the case file of Ian Lightbourne, a Florida death row inmate whose lawyers submitted them as evidence for lethal injection, poses an unconstitutional risk of cruel and unusual punishment. States adopted lethal injection in order to make it blah, 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 blah. No pain, no spasms, no smells or sounds, just sleep, then death. But even back then, the Oklahoma chief medical examiner who wrote the protocol warned, in the words of the Daily Oklahoman, that the major hazard of using lethal drugs in the execution of criminals is missing the vein in establishing a pathway for the drugs. That's what I mean. Why is it medically? This is what I was trying to explain before. What's the point of saying that medical practitioners can't be a part of it when? Okay, so I know every nurse out there will tell you that that doctors can't do IVs either. Only nurses can. But you need someone that is experienced in this shit. You pay, what is it? You pay peanuts, you get monkeys. A death penalty method that was supposed to be less barbaric than its predecessors, it turns out, can still mutilate the human body. These photos taken by a Florida medical examiner during the autopsy of Diaz's body are evidence of how. Okay, are we ready? Are we ready? Yeah? Turn off now if you're not, okay? Diaz died at 6:36 p.m. and the medical examination began the next morning. His body arrived at the medical examiner's office in the clothes he died in, with the IVs still in his arms. How do I get rid of that? There we go. And get rid of that. Okay, so Diaz's body at the beginning of the autopsy with the execution IVs still in both arms. Can't really see his arms. The most common way botched lethal injections is by subjecting prisoners to several needle pricks over a long period of time. They struggle to locate the veins. Well, maybe have a hydration protocol before you do it. Person either unknowingly or wantonly pushed the catheters through both veins and into the subcutaneous soft tissue. Yep. As a result, the drugs flowed between the layers of the soft tissue in Diaz's arms rather than into the bloodstream. This created large chemical burns on the right arm with numerous blisters. A sloughing off of superficial skin on the left arm, the burn zone was 11 by 7 inches. The blisters, according to the autopsy report, were filled with watery pink tinged fluid. By the time the autopsy began, the medical examiner noted there had been extensive skin slippage, revealing white and pink subcutaneous skin. Oh! Fuck off. You can see where it's tissued. Fucking hell. Diaz's left arm had the chemical. Yeah, by the time I read that. Upscale. Oop. Oh. That didn't really do much. By magnification. I don't even know where I am. That's horrible. Dropped you out again. Share screen. Extensive skin slippage on Diaz's left arm, a watery pink tinged fluid between the burn blisters. That's disgusting. I've never seen anything like this from IV infiltration. Mark Heath, an anesthesiologist in Columbia University who studied lethal injection, has testified extensively about the procedure. Wow. Diaz's right arm had a 12 by 5-inch chemical burn from the lethal drugs. Its skin had also begun to slough off when the autopsy began, revealing subcutaneous skin. So all that dark is the burn. The intended purpose of the thiopental was to make Diaz unconscious. Then the second drug, a paralyzing agent, would shut down his muscles, and the third was potassium. Yeah, we know that now. A member of the execution team noticed more resistance in the syringe than usual. Are you shitting me? She noticed more resistance than usual and didn't stop. When he or she began to pump thiopental into Diaz's arms, this person was able to complete the dosage and then began to administer the second drug through the same IV. The resistance grew, however, until the point where he or she could push the plunger no further. You could have seen it. The execution team switched to the IV in Diaz's right arm to complete the dosage and then applied the potassium chloride. When it failed to stop his heart, the execution team administered another full cycle of the 3-drug cocktail, switching back midway from his right arm to his left. So they didn't even try and recite it. Drugs work differently subcutaneously than they do intravenously. No shit, Sherlock. If thiopental infiltrates, it will not produce anesthesia. No. Plus, the absorption rate is so fucking slow. In all likelihood, Diaz remained conscious as the drugs pulled in his arms. Yep. And the broma began to paralyze him. Diaz would have become chemically locked in, that is, mentally aware, but without control of any voluntary muscles. And he would have starved for air as his diaphragm shut down and he slowly suffocated. In the autopsy report, the medical examiner noted bilateral jugular venous distension. So, yeah, an abnormal swelling of both jugular veins in Diaz's neck that could be a sign he struggled for air. Venous jugular distension in his neck. Witnesses to the execution. I need a tissue. that's just it's not acceptable. It is. You have a duty of care, and that is irresponsible. And if you did that in a hospital, yeah, you tell them, right? What would happen to you? Fucking hell. Witnesses to the execution reported Diaz moved. Oh, fuck, sorry. Don't know where that came from. Witnesses of the execution reported Diaz moved throughout the procedure, suggesting he was awake and trying to overcome the onset of paralysis. Chris Tisch, a St. Petersburg Times reporter who witnessed the execution, wrote that he began grimacing and appeared to speak at the start. His words could not be heard by the witnesses because of a glass window. He repeatedly squinted his eyes and lifted his chin. 10 minutes into the execution, around the time he was expected to die, he turned his head to the right and began to cough. 16 minutes into the execution, he was still moving his mouth and chin. By the 20th minute, he appeared to have stopped moving, but then 2 minutes later, his body jolted, according to Tisch, and his eyes opened more widely. At 6:34, a doctor checked his vital signs, and he or she left the execution chamber, returned a minute later again, checked again, and at 6:36, the execution team member pronounced him dead. Tisch wrote in his notes that for several minutes, Diaz's mouth was flexing like a fish out of water. That's a reflex. The Florida Department of Corrections originally said that Diaz's execution took longer than expected because he had liver problems. Go fuck yourself. That slowed the chemicals. Righto. That's like saying a Valium won't work because you got a cold. Yep. Oh my God. You don't understand how stupid that is. 2 days after he died, Bush put a moratorium on all Florida's executions. He also assembled a panel of experts to review and revise their lethal injection protocol. Huh? Really? It only took that? This panel, which included doctors and state politicians, found that the execution team lacked appropriate training and that the team did not follow the proper protocols. Can you imagine being the prisoner? You would think that obviously your life is in their hands, that they would have someone suitably qualified to perform what? Look, yeah, midazolam as a pre-med before they go to the chamber, no worries. But not. I can't believe they just kept trying to push the IVs when they'd both tissued and then blamed the liver. Yep. After a nationwide shortage in thiopental, Florida replaced the first drug in the 3-drug cocktail with midazolam. Why can't they get a instead of them calling it an execution team, get a palliative care team? Last October, Florida executed its first prisoner with midazolam. It was the rapist named William Happ. Why is that name familiar? It appeared Happ remained conscious longer and made more body movements after losing consciousness than other people executed recently. Oklahoma also executed Clayton Lockett using midazolam as the first drug, though the dosage was only a fifth of the amount Florida used for Happ. After the botch, Oklahoma said Lockett died from a heart attack. One cause might have been the potassium chloride wound, though that is unlikely if the drug was not entering his bloodstream. Yep. After his death, they sent Lockett's body to Dallas for an autopsy. It was returned to Oklahoma for a second one by an independent forensics pathologist. The results of these autopsies have not been released. Wonder why. It is important to note that a botched execution would not necessarily cause any physical injuries at all. One of the main concerns with lethal injection is the integrity of the drugs, especially since the shortage in thiopental sent states scrambling for untested replacements. Oh my God, now they're using... they're not bloody lab rats. Wow. It blows me away that this can happen in this day and age. With all that we know. Apparently don't know. Oh. Oh, this might be a bit nasty too. Oh! Okay. Yep. Right. Sorry. Graphic warning. This is the last person to be executed by the electric chair in Florida in 1999. Yes. 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 Anesthetize them. Yeah, okay. This is going to be nasty. Oh. Right. Some things you just can't unsee. All right, let me go back. Seeking a more humane method of execution than hanging, New York built the first electric chair. Soon, other states adopted this execution method. Today, electrocution is not used as the sole method of execution in any state. Electrocution was the sole method in Nebraska until the state Supreme Court ruled the method unconstitutional in 2008. For execution by the electric chair, the person is usually shaved and strapped to a chair with belts that cross his chest, groin, legs, and arms. A metal skull cap-shaped electrode is attached to the scalp and forehead over a sponge moistened with saline. The sponge must not be too wet, or the saline short-circuits the electric current, and not too dry, as it would then have a very high resistance. An additional electrode is moistened with conductive jelly and attached to a portion of the prisoner's legs that has been shaved to reduce resistance. The prisoner is then blindfolded. After the execution team has withdrawn to the observation room, the warden signals the executioner, who pulls a handle to connect the power supply. A jolt of between 500 and 2,000 volts which lasts for about 30 seconds, is given. The current surges and is then turned off, at which time the body is seen to relax. The doctors wait a few seconds for the body to cool down. And then check to see if the prisoner's heart is still beating. If it is, another jolt is applied. The process continues until the prisoner is dead. The prisoner's hands often grip the chair, and there may be violent movement of the limbs, which can result in discoloration or fractures. The tissues swell, defecation occurs, steam or smoke rises, and there is a smell of burning. The prisoner's eyeballs sometimes pop out. Oh. The prisoner often defecates, urinates, and vomits blood and drool. The body turns bright red as its temperature rises, and the prisoner's flesh swells. His skin stretches to the point of breaking. Sometimes the prisoner catches fire. Witnesses hear a loud and sustained sound like bacon frying. Someone actually wrote that. Right. Oh, look, the gas chamber. Listen to the audio execution tapes recorded by the Georgia Department of Corrections, which narrate the executions of 22 inmates in the electric chair. Have I gone to the dark web or? Oh, Lord. So they used to use cyanide gas. John was the first person executed by lethal gas. The state tried to pump cyanide gas into John's cell while he slept. This proved impossible because the gas leaked from his cell. So the gas chamber was constructed. Geez, they're bright, aren't they? Today, 5 states authorise lethal gas as a method of execution, but all have lethal injection as an alternative method. A federal court in California found this method to be cruel and unusual punishment. For execution by this method, the condemned person is strapped to a chair in an airtight chamber. Below the chair rests a pail of sulfuric acid. A long stethoscope is typically affixed to the prisoner so that a doctor outside the chamber can pronounce death. Okay. Once everyone has left the chamber, the room is sealed. The warden then gives a signal, who flicks a lever that releases the crystals of sodium cyanide into the pail. This causes a chemical reaction that produces hydrogen cyanide gas. The prisoner is instructed to breathe deeply. That's nearly as hard as saying push when you're giving birth. Because the second you do, I've got to like fuck. It's a big mind fuck. I've got to get this baby out the fuck. The prisoner is instructed to deep breathe to speed up the process. Most prisoners, however, try to hold their breath. Surprise, surprise. Prisoners not lose consciousness immediately. First, there is evidence of extreme horror, pain, and strangling. The eyes pop, the skin turns purple, and the victim begins to drool. Carl Chessman, before he died in California's gas chamber in 1960, that's like not long enough ago, told reporters that he would nod his head if it hurt. Witnesses said he nodded his head for several minutes. The person is unquestionably experiencing pain and extreme anxiety. The sensation is similar to the pain felt by a person during a heart attack where essentially the heart is being deprived of oxygen. The prisoner dies from hypoxia, which is lack of oxygen, the cutting off of oxygen to the brain. There you go. At post-mortem, an exhaust fan sucks the poison out of the chamber. Who's responsible for cleaning that? Who's going to volunteer and go, "Ooh, I'm going to clean that"? Yeah. And the corpse is sprayed with ammonia to neutralize any remaining traces of cyanide. After half an hour later, orderlies enter the chamber wearing gas masks and rubber gloves, like Bad Boy. What is it? Bad Boy Bubba? That was a shocking movie. Their training manual advises them to ruffle the victim's hair to release any trapped cyanide gas before removing the deceased. In 2015, Oklahoma introduced death by nitrogen gas as an alternative to lethal injection. Really? If the necessary drugs cannot be found, or if that method is found unconstitutional. In 2018, Alabama legislators authorized the use of nitrogen gas in executions. Is this what you were talking about the other day, Udahep, that they've gone back to gas in Florida? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's awful, isn't it? Good movie, but awful. Yep, it's too much room for error. There should be no error. Zero. Can you imagine if you're presenting someone in intensive care and they're intubated and on a breathing machine, and the doctors don't know how to keep them sedated, and they're trying to pull tubes out, and that would be, you would be up in arms. But there is nothing to say here that they've made any there's no accountability for people that can't do their job. Firing squad. Oh dear. On March 23, 2015, firing squad was reauthorized in Utah as a viable method of execution, if and only if the state was unable to obtain the drugs necessary for the lethal injection. Prior to this reauthorization, firing squad was only, where did that say? Utah. Is that not also in Idaho? Have they not reopened up the firing squad up there as well? Because I think I heard somewhere about Brian Koberger getting to choose. I have to look that up. The most recent execution by this method was that of Ronnie Gardner by his own choosing. Gardner was executed by firing squad in Utah on June 17th, 2010. For execution by this method, the prisoner is typically bound to a chair with leather straps across his waist and head in front of an oval-shaped canvas wall. The chair is surrounded by sandbags to absorb the prisoner's blood. A black hood is pulled over the prisoner's head. A doctor locates the prisoner's heart with a stethoscope and pins a circular white cloth target over it. Standing in an enclosure 20 feet away, 5 shooters are armed with 30 caliber rifles loaded with single rounds. One of the shooters is given a blank round. South Carolina's execution protocol calls for the use of 3 shooters, each of whom is provided live rounds. Each of the shooters aims his rifle through a slot in the canvas and fires at the prisoner. Now, these people apparently are volunteers. The shooters, they're volunteers. Who the fuck puts their hand up for that job? Oh, pick me, pick me. The person, where is it? The prisoner, I missed it. Each of the shooters aims his rifle through a slot in the canvas and fires at the prisoner. The prisoner dies as a result of blood loss caused by rupture of the heart or a large blood vessel, or tearing of the lungs, if you're a shit shot. The person shot loses consciousness when shock causes a fall in the supply of blood to the brain. If the shooters miss the heart by accident or intention, the prisoner bleeds to death slowly. So I was right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he has the choice. I think I think that's what he's chosen. Can anyone quickly Google Coburger firing squad death penalty or something? Let me know. Hanging. Utah. In the 1890s, hanging was the primary method of execution used in the US. Hanging was still authorized in Delaware and Washington before those states abolished the death penalty in 2016, although both had lethal injection as an alternative method of execution. For execution by hanging, the prisoner may be weighed the day before the execution as a rehearsal is done. So what? The fuck? This is to determine the length of drop necessary to ensure a quick death. If the rope is too long, the prisoner could be decapitated. And if it is too short, the strangulation could take as long as 45 minutes. The rope, which should be 3/4 of an inch to 11/4 of an inch in diameter, must be boiled and stretched to eliminate spring or coiling. The knot should be lubricated with wax or soap to ensure a smooth sliding action. Immediately before the execution, the prisoner's hands and legs are secured. Next, they'll be telling me is beheading, or drawn and quartered. He or she is blindfolded and the noose is placed around the neck with the knot behind the left ear. The execution takes place when a trapdoor is opened and the prisoner falls through. The prisoner's weight should cause a rapid fracture dislocation of the neck. However, instantaneous death rarely occurs. If the prisoner has strong neck muscles, is very light. If the drop is too short or the noose has been wrongly positioned, the fracture dislocation is not rapid and death results from slow asphyxiation. If this occurs, the face becomes engorged, the tongue protrudes, the eyes pop, the body defecates, and violent movements of the limbs occur. Nice. Bedtime watching. Well, that was educational, if nothing else. Oh, here we go. Authorized methods by state. Where is Idaho? Lethal injection is the sole method as of July 2009. When was this? When was this written? I don't know when this was. Florida. Lethal injection will be administered unless the prisoner affirmatively chooses electrocution in writing and delivered to the warden of the correctional facility within 30 days after the issuance of mandate pursuant to a decision by the Florida Supreme Court affirming the sentence of death. If lethal injection or electrocution is found to be unconstitutional, then any constitutional method will be administered. Georgia, lethal injection is the sole method. In 2001, the Georgia Supreme Court held that the electric chair was cruel and unusual punishment and struck down the state's use of the method. Indiana, lethal injection. Kansas, lethal injection. Kentucky, lethal injection for those convicted after March 31st. Why is there a cutoff? Like, before March 1998, you were more of a criminal than you were afterwards, or what? Were you less deserving? Those who committed the offence before that date may select lethal injection or electrocution. Louisiana authorises lethal injection, nitrogen hypoxia, or electrocution. Mississippi, use of nitrogen hypoxia if either lethal injection is held unconstitutional or otherwise unavailable. Then authorises electrocution if nitrogen hypoxia and lethal injection are held unconstitutional or otherwise unavailable. Finally, authorises a firing squad if none of the above. Oh, fuck no. Missouri, lethal injection or lethal gas. The statute leaves unclear who decides what method to use, the inmate or the director of the Department of Corrections. Montana, lethal injection. Nebraska, lethal injection. Nevada, lethal injection. New Hampshire, lethal injection. If for any reason the Commissioner finds it to be impractical to carry out the punishment of death by administration of lethal substance or substances, a sentence of death may be carried out by hanging. Really? Could you imagine being the head of the Department of Justice in New Hampshire? Lethal injection was the sole method in New Mexico. Oh, but they abolished it in 2009. However, the act is not retroactive, leaving 2 people on the state's death. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you for doing that, sweetheart. But why does this say that it's only lethal injection that they offer? Might be old. South Carolina. Let's read that one. A person convicted of a capital crime and having imposed upon him the sentence of death shall suffer the penalty by electrocution or at the election of the convicted person by firing squad or lethal injection. But electrocution is the first. If it is available at the time of election under the direction of the director of the Department of Corrections, the election of death by electrocution, firing squad, or lethal injection must be made. Yeah. Tennessee authorises lethal injections for those whose capital offences occurred after 1998. Those who committed the offence before that date may select electrocution by written waiver. Utah authorises the use of the firing squad if lethal injections are unavailable. Virginia allows prisoners to choose between lethal injection and electrocution. Well, that's an interesting one because that's where Steve is. If in the event the prisoner refuses to make a choice at least 15 days prior to the scheduled execution, the method of execution shall be by lethal injection. Washington provides that lethal injection be administered unless the inmate requests it. Hanging? Wyoming, lethal injection. Oh, sorry, authorizes lethal gas if lethal injection is held to be unconstitutional. Wow. Wow. I can't believe he'll have those options. Alabama. Oh my God. Okay. Effective in 2018, lethal injection will be administered unless the prisoner firmly chooses nitrogen hypoxia or electrocution in writing. After the certificate of judgment pursuant, if electrocution or nitrogen hypoxia are held unconstitutional, the method of execution shall be lethal injection. If lethal injection is held unconstitutional, the method shall be by nitrogen hypoxia. If electrocution, nitrogen hypoxia, and lethal injection are all held to be unconstitutional, then all persons sentenced to death for a capital crime shall be executed by any constitutional method of execution based on the sole discretion of the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections. So if all else fails, who'd be applying for that job? This just blows me away. And how many of these states are actively seeking to abolish the death penalty? Do we know? I mean, I'm tipping probably Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, Florida. Ain't going anywhere just yet. Pictures of the execution chambers. Ooh. A haunting look at America's execution chamber. Robert James Campbell, a 41-year-old Texas inmate, was supposed to die Tuesday night. What's the date of this? 2014. In a small room at the Huntsville unit of the Texas State Penitentiary. He would have been the first death by lethal injection since the botched execution of Oklahoma prisoner Clayton Lockett just 2 weeks ago. Instead, he was granted a last-minute stay on his execution based on new evidence that Campbell's IQ was below 70. Oh, that's the one who asked. He was offered his last meal, and he he said, "Can I have it later?" His lawyers thought initially petitioned on the grounds that the judge rejected the plea, citing previous court rulings. But even as he said his hands were tied, he wrote in his decision that the Oklahoma case requires sober reflection on the manner in which this nation administers the ultimate punishment. Oh, snap. Kick me off the page. Okay. The photos in this collection are pieced together from photographers' wire services and from prison archives. Most states rely on lethal injection. Texas executes more prisoners than any other state and is one of the few, including Oklahoma, Florida, and Missouri, that have executed prisoners this year. But even states that haven't put anyone to death for decades tend to have a place for doing so. A few of the execution facilities below. Excuse me 1 second. Yep. All good now. I love the mute button. There's the cat. Oh dear. Oh Lord. Regretted that one too, Tricia. Oh, my nose. These rooms are empty more often than occupied. Well, yeah. You'd hope so. It says here 32 states where the death penalty is still legal. It's not still 32, is it? Built within prison walls, they are spare and cold and clinical. Photos in this collection. Oh, I've read that bit. Well, that still looks better than what the other picture did. What type of floor have they got? Don't tell me they put carpet in there, for fuck's sake. That's, hang on. So, this one is Florida. This one is Idaho. This one is Indiana. Oh, that's Virginia. Greensville Correctional Facility. Oh, this one is Washington State. This one is Colorado. Oh, this is the firing squad, is it? That one? Yeah, Utah. Wow. Utah now only allows for death by firing squad if lethal injection is deemed unconstitutional. That's a viewing room, is it? South Carolina, yep. Ugh, that looks nasty. Oklahoma. Gas chamber, North Carolina. Ugh. Right. The gallows. Delaware. This one is, oh, look, you get a mirror. You get to see yourself. So lucky. South Dakota. That looks like a gas chamber. Oh, lethal injection chamber, Nevada State Prison in Nevada. Looks like a submarine. Execution chamber in Kentucky. Execution chamber in Tennessee. Execution chamber, Oregon. Mississippi. Georgia. Pennsylvania. That looks like an outback toilet. Montana. Texas. Don't ever choose that blue to put on your walls, or that red. Kansas. Or that yellow. Alabama. Sorry, I just got distracted by the Timu on the side. Louisiana. California. Yes, that does look very California-ish. Arizona. Gas chamber. Ohio. Wow. Just fucking wow. What's this? All right, that's too much political shit there. Well, yeah, that was a rabbit hole I hadn't planned to go down. Sorry about that. My bad. No, there was no New Jersey on there. No. Let me go back to solo. Oh. Now, I've missed chat, sorry. Oh, God, way back. Green Mile. Coburger. I may be wrong, but I thought they couldn't say how he would receive death convicted of the death penalty because they couldn't say what would be available. Yeah, I think that's to do with the availability of the drugs because as I said, the pharmacies don't want to be associated with what they're used for. So they're buying the cheaper, nastier stuff from overseas. Yeah, I thought he did too. Kentucky is trying to do away with it here. Okay. 2008 was the last execution in Kentucky. 4. Do you know what 4? Okay, so there's 27 states. So that's 4 that have gone from 2014. 4 in 10 years. So Montana can get the pool for $300. Not sure what you guys are up to, but I'm back. We went down a rabbit hole, Anna, sorry. Or I did. What? You've got to see what? What? What bit? I don't know. I don't know which bit you've missed, Dawn, so just rewind. Oh, can't believe my nose. Well, I think we might call it for this evening. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Friday, isn't it? And today's Friday for me. Yes. So I've got tomorrow night and then the podcast. If you do purchase or get a copy of Steve Gosney's books, I recommend that you read the first one first before, because I read the second one first because I got hold of that first, and it was completely different. So, yeah, I would recommend the first one first. Every time I get to the point of getting rid of the death penalty, some evil bastard comes along and makes me. Oh, that's what I was going to show you. Hang on. Did anyone see my I put something up on my community page a few days ago. Or was it on X? Hang on. It was hysterical. I'll see if I can find it. No. No, must have been on X. Bugger. Anyway, I was looking for Temu. Hang on. I'll show you the order. It's money well spent, Brian. Money well spent. Let me tell you. You ready? Brace yourself. Oh, where did I go? Okay. Orders and accounts. This is the order. All right. So the first thing we bought. Oh, I'm going to share it. Send share screen. The first one is don't be a cunt cake. It's a kiwi. Cost a whole $1.22. Then we purchased this one, this little gem. Apparently, I have to wear it on stream. Hopefully, I picked the pink one. I can't remember. The next thing we bought was a bath mat that, when it gets wet, it makes it look like you're bleeding. So I'm gonna put that in my kitchen and stand there and sprinkle water all over it and go, oh, you'll cut yourself. It's a great Halloween trick. $6. That was $6. And the last one was the it was the hoodie. Problem solved. That'd be a good one for you, Bri. Done. All right. I am going nice. I'm going to take an antihistamine before I do so. So, love you all. Thank you for the super chats. I will be adding that $5 to the 45 from the spread shirt merch. So, $50. And I will upload the receipt. Thank you very much for joining me again. Snotty as I am. It's only when I'm sitting here. Anywho, Happy New Year. Stay safe, especially out your way, T. You've got some nasty, nasty weather coming. We've got the other end of the scale. It's going to be 100 degrees Fahrenheit for the next 3 days here. Luckily, I've had my air conditioner filters cleaned. So, stay safe, stay warm over there, stay cool over here. Don't be good, because that's boring. And love yous. Mwah. See ya on the morrow. Bye-bye.
Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests.